Okay, so here we go. Game number 1 up against the Legion. I forgot to change the names, so I'm just gonna do that real quick. Come on. Gion. There we go. Done. Okay, and now let's get into the game. So I'm trying out the Rakarth sub-faction. He doesn't come with any new extra units, but he is a fairly cool lord. And hopefully, with a bit of dodging, you won't get counter skirmish too hard. This is a full-on melee rush build, and it's going to be relying a lot on the cavalry and the single entities to do the fighting here. It's a really good thing that we do have the Manticores and the Beastmaster to kill off Tomb Scorpions. And with a little bit of effort, they should go down pretty quickly. There are the ROR Ushapti though that I will have to worry about, and quite a bit of infantry to actually cut down before I can get there. So it's going to be quite the mission, but with enough micro, should be able to make it to the front line without taking too much damage. Just want to dodge with the Sorceress as much as possible, wait for the Ushapti to fire, and then dodge. Pretty standard micro. It looks like they're firing in on the Beastmaster now, but no, actually heading for my infantry instead. Not too bad, and they should be down very soon. The cavalry wants to stay nice and far away from these skeleton horse archers, as they do. Yeah, we want to stay away from the skeleton horse archers since we don't have anything to really ward them off. Instead, we just want to be engaging the frontline fight as quickly as possible. Already gave Legion a 2-0. Oh, rip. Oh wait, no, you're saying he won? Alright, I'm gonna change the score real quick before we get our engage on. There we go, it's set. And let's go ahead and dive straight on in onto these Ushapti. We have a ton of single entities that are very strong here, so I'm not too worried about blobbing up directly on top of them. Let's see, the Beastmaster can go ahead and dive in on the Tomb Scorpion, and we're gonna try a setup for a Soul Stealer potentially, and hopefully that goes okay. The Slaanesha's Harvesters are at the ready. All these troops have clumped up, which means it's Soul Stealer City, and it's going to be a ton of damage onto all of these troops. Rakarth can throw down a few buffs, I guess. Gonna unrampage the Manticore to increase its leadership, and then with our cavalry swooping in the back, that should be the Ushapti shut down. So already not a bad situation at all, except for Rakarth, who is getting beat up by a Tomb Scorpion, which we will reduce its melee defense. That actually doesn't do a whole ton since there's another Tomb Scorpion and we're retreating. But at the very least, Rakarth should be able to disengage, which is very good for me. So at this point, it's just shutting down the Tomb Scorpions, and then continuing to cycle charge the infantry just to get them off the battlefield as quickly as I can. But it's going to be a bit of a difficult task, and Arkan the Black too is actually a bit exposed, so I think I'm going to dive in directly on top of him. If I can take out Arkan the Black, then that's going to be the magic gone for the Tomb Kings, and that should be pretty good. So Rakarth is just going to dive in directly on top of him. I have a Master here somewhere too, getting gooned out by Tomb Scorpions, but he should actually be able to fight. He should be able to win that fight fairly well. As for Arkan the Black, he does manage to escape from Rakarth, and it's going to be a bit of an issue if he does manage to get all the way out, but another land in from Rakarth and some buffs should be able to turn the tide of that fight in my favor. I'll just, let's see, focus all my cavalry over there, and then just continue focus firing. I can even buff up the leadership of Rakarth to try and keep him in the fight a tiny bit longer. As for the Supreme Sorceress, she'll be diving in onto Arkan the Black too. Looks like he's taking a good amount of damage, but big problem, Rakarth gets absolutely deleted, and that's going to be pretty bad. But Arkan the Black, now getting charged by the Beastmaster, might go down. I have a Manticore alive too and a ton of cavalry, and they do fairly well up against the Tomb Scorpions. So I'll see if I'm able to manage that. Hopefully killing off the Tomb Scorpions with the Manticore. But the loss of Rakarth is going to be a pretty huge leadership debuff for my army. And it looks like that might be it. Just losing out my lord. Gonna be causing a few issues here. However, my troops will be rallying. I do actually have a few units of cavalry. So, the possibility of a comeback is still here. I have some burning heads. Really just the biggest problem is those Tomb Scorpions for sure. And there we go, my Supreme Sorceress is gone again. Still have some cavalry though. They'll cycle charge these skeleton warriors. But oh, unfortunate end for the burning head. It killed off some bleak swords. Oh dear. Well, that's pretty rough. But it looks like the balance of power is still in my favor, strangely enough. Let's see here. These Solnash's Harvesters are going to get routed off by the Tomb Scorpions, and it seems like Terra routes are probably going to be my main issue here. I don't really have much to deal with these elite Tomb King monsters, except for a few Cold One Knights, really. So, fingers crossed the leadership is high enough that we don't get any Terra routes. And as for Ark in the Black, he's going to be continuing to dance around. I don't think I can actually kill him here. Just taking a look at the situation. He seems like he's going to be a pretty hard target to take down. I'll send in my Beastmaster on a mission to try and kill out these Tomb Scorpions. But it looks like he probably will not be able to. Let's see. He'll need some lucky hits. He is anti-large. But the problem is that when you're getting ganged up by two Tomb Scorpions, things can end pretty badly. And there we go. He gets routed off again. And that's gonna be GG. Oh man, I think that was pretty close. Although not being able to actually kill off targets was a huge problem. Legion micro to single entities much better than I did. And if you take a look at the values, Tomb Scorpions did very well. Manticore and Rakarth, not so much. Oh, and a raid. Thank you very much, Mark Locken. That is hugely appreciated. Do you are you a frequent viewer of my content, or are you just hitting random targets? And for the next game, the chat experimentation is over for now. If you guys are interested in more of it, let me know. But for now, we'll be running without the chat, just so it's not too distracting. I have a gyrocopter build up against the Dark Elves. They have quite a few harpies. And the gyrocopters can do okay against them as long as they have some space to retreat to. I'm going to reposition my army so that we don't get overloaded along one of the flanks, and then bring over the gyrocopters to start warding away some of these infantry troops. The rangers too are going to be focus firing the Sisters of Slaughter, and hopefully that goes okay. I have a bunch of blasting charges too to clear up a little bit of the front line. And the harpies are repositioning. Like I said, I do have rangers at the ready, so that's not too scary for me. A few thunderers too will be able to come in and help the situation. So far I'm feeling okay, especially since the front line is now extremely battered for the Dark Elves. As long as I continue to pivot, it should be alright. Now I'm going to turn, because there is a Supreme Sorceress of Beasts in the back that I will have to worry about. And the harpies are beginning to fly on in. So I'll loose a volley of Quarreler fire into them, hopefully taking most of them out. The Supreme Sorceress of Beasts too. It's going to be a little bit scary. And some cavalry in the back through Dark Riders could pose a pretty big threat too. So I'll make sure that I slow them and focus fire them with my guns. As for the infantry, there are still a lot of Hargoneth executioners to worry about, but that's the job of the gyro bomber to actually deal with. Now the harpies have all dived in on my gyrocopters now. So question is, will I have enough to actually handle the situation? I have a few Slayers. They're going to be catching out these Sisters of Slaughter. I have a few blasting charges too to go ahead and deal with them. And like someone said earlier, the Flying Wind spell in the form of a Gyro Bomber is going to be going overhead and hitting these Executioners probably. My blasting charges should do fairly well too. And here we go. See if we can take out these Executioners. We take a pretty nice bombing run, and then another one should be able to kill them, but a lot of my troops are getting compromised now. My Thunderers especially, and a lot of my Quarrelers too. The Iron Breakers have taken quite a beating, but I think I've just about killed off the Executioners while keeping my Norgrimlings alive. I do have a lot of infantry, but I've lost 2 of my gyrocopters while microing my bomber. That's pretty unfortunate. But with 2 more bombs left, I should be able to take out this group of infantry. It's a few Executioners, and that is the end of the damage on that front. Supreme Sorceress of Beast is going to have another summon too, and that is going to be a pretty big worry. Especially without my gyrocopters, it looks like that miss micro is going to cost me the game. But we'll continue scrapping it out. Oh my goodness, a huge spear comes in onto my Thunderers and routes them off. And if we take a look at the situation, I think Legion may have done it. Gyro Bomber is now compromised as a bunch of Executioners, and I'm going to call it GG there. Tons of Harpies running into a gyrocopter build, but also a lot of miss micro. Gonna be a pretty quick victory for Legion this time around. Whoops, I forgot to hover over some scores. So let's go ahead and take a quick peek at everything. The blasting charges did really well for the front line, but you need to be bombing out things like the Executioners. When my gyrocopters got shut down, that was really the end of me on that front. And the Harpies too are a big problem. You can't opt out of the air game. And in this case, Legion didn't go for any chariots, which was actually really good for him, since it meant he could shut down the gyrocopters. And here we go, another dwarf game up against the greenskins. I got my heavy infantry rush build up against a mass artillery build for the greenskins. That's actually pretty good for me, given that I am rushing. And if I can just slowly advance and make it to the artillery, then I should be good to go. I'll be progressing towards these 2 artillery pieces first. And then, yeah, hopefully I can just shut them down. The rest of the army looks to be basically just all goblins for the greenskins. So that's not too worrisome. I do have blasting charges to kill off goblins if I need to. And during the early stages of the game, really all I have to do is worry about, I just have to worry about clumping up and walking into fanatics, who have actually shown themselves here. For some reason, they are pretty hard to spot this time around. Not sure exactly what happened there, but there we go. More fanatics do reveal themselves, but I have blasting charges at the ready, and that should be able to get quite a bit of damage there. A little bit of miss micro from me though lets my dwarf warriors get charged by a few fanatics, by some squig hoppers. But things are still going fairly well. Grombrindle too has caught off some night goblins. I've done a lot of damage to these ones too, and despite losing a few troops to squig hoppers, we have cleared out a few of the greenskin forces so far. In fact, there shouldn't be too many goblins in general. So the need for a ton of infantry isn't especially high, and as long as I'm trading out, I should be fairly comfortable as I slowly make it closer and closer to the artillery for the greenskins. Now the Dowie are almost all about their infantry micro and how well you can position them. So that's going to be the main focus for today. A few rusty errors do reveal themselves, and I'm going to see if I can take them out with some blasting charges and miners. And I also want my slayers to be very close to all of my forces, lest they get charged, lest my infantry gets charged by the greenskins. So there we go. It's going to be the plan. We've melted the rusty errors pretty well, so that is pretty nice for me. My Bugman's Rangers are regenerating. And we can just continue progressing towards this artillery line. These rock lobbers are likely going to use up all of their ammunition, but after they're out, they are no longer going to be a major threat. As long as I have enough infantry, then there shouldn't be too much to worry about. I'll continue spreading out my troops as much as possible to avoid the rocks as best as I can. And just use the Iron Drakes to clear up as many goblins as I can. A few more reveal themselves along the flank, and a single volley should be able to take them out. Now the Slayers are going to have to be, I'm going to have to be pretty careful with the Slayers, just spreading them out among my infantry wherever any cavalry might decide to dive in. And with the artillery nearly compromised, I am feeling a bit more comfortable, but a big charge of cavalry from the Greenskins could potentially cause a few problems. We'll have to see. I have my miners and dwarf warriors at the ready, and the Slayers are trading pretty well into the squig hoppers. Yeah, indeed, squigs are hungry. But here we go. This is a pretty good break for me. The artillery is pretty undefended for the Greenskins, so I can take them out with my Slayers and dwarf warriors without having to worry about them getting picked off by these squig hoppers. The skirmishers for the Greenskins are nearly out of ammunition too, so I don't even have to really focus fire them. And really just these Night Goblin fanatics are a bit worrying. I do get a really nice fanatic bomb on my Bugmans. Thankfully they do stay in combat and just barely hold. And as soon as the storm is done being weathered, as long as I haven't taken too many losses, I think I should be okay. Now another charge in from the goblins. It's going to be catching a few of the Bugmans, but that should be a pretty easy pick. I'm going to double check the Hag to make sure she doesn't have any AoE, and she doesn't, so I can safely group up my units without too much of a worry. And there we go, the artillery is shut down for the Greenskins. Some nasty skulkers may pick off a few Longbeards, but that's not too bad, as I can. Yeah, they're gonna pick off a few Longbeards, but the Longbeards, they can still trade fairly well into Skulkers, just because of their really high melee defense stats. And there we go. These rock lobbers are almost out of ammunition, but not quite yet. Really, the main saving grace for me right now is that I still have my Iron Drakes. Yeah, the Fanatics have been hitting very hard for sure. And here we go, Iron Drakes. If they're able to take out these Goblin Archers, that'll be quite good, because these guys do have a lot of ammunition left. That is definitely pretty scary. The Night Goblin War Boss hanging around too. That is going to be a little problematic, but I still have my unit of Slayers, and I think keeping this one unit of Slayers alive is going to be a win condition for me. Brombrindle too is going to be a little bit of a... It's going to be quite an effort for the Greenskins to actually take him out. But he definitely needs infantry support if I want to win this game. Brombrindle on his own isn't nearly enough to actually to win games by himself. And with all of my ranged elements shut down too, I'm a little bit worried here. I only have one Iron Drake left, and he's likely going to be routing off in just a second. At the very least, though, I am able to take out the rock lobbers. And really the biggest threat here are these rusty arrows. There's still quite a few models. They have high armor piercing, and that's going to be a pretty big problem for me. A few squigs coming in too will be pretty bad, but I am braced for the charge, and I think I'll be able to trade effectively in that situation. I do catch a few with my Slayer, so that's pretty good. And as long as I can keep this rock lobber crew from actually firing on me, then I think I'll be okay. Still, a lot of my troops are getting caught out, and Grombrindle's looking for a few targets to actually hit up. Some more Fanatics could come in too. I'm going to pull my troops away from those guys, because I definitely don't want to get hit by Fanatics. And how much damage are they going to be doing? Not too much. That one I actually do manage to dodge fairly well. But more fanatics could come in the future. And here we go. Some more rusty arrows do come in. They charge a few of my miners. But with each charge of the greenskins, they do lose a few units of cavalry. So I'm not leaving these trades without getting a bit of damage off. It's just, yeah, I'm beginning to take a lot of damage. Now these goblins too, with their fanatics, they do, the fanatics do get disabled after a certain damage threshold. So I'm trying to push them to that as quickly as I can. Just trying to drop their damage, their HP, so that they can't throw any more fanatics at me. Another bomb does go off, catches out a few units of dwarf warriors, but not the absolute worst case. Caught out a few squig hoppers, and the ammunition is nearly gone for the greenskins finally. So it's been a long match. I do still have a few slayers and dwarf warriors, but the constant fanatics have been hurting quite a bit. It really depends on if there are more to come, and we'll have to see. I think the goblins are at low enough HP where I'm not too worried about running into more fanatics. They are on the verge of routing off too. And the squig hopper numbers are slowly dwindling. I think it is a bit unfortunate that I did run out of... It's a bit unfortunate that I did run out of my bugmans, that they all got killed off. Since that does mean that yeah, without any bugmans, I don't have any ranged pressure to kill off the cavalry. But I'm still doing fairly okay. I still have all my slayers, or at least a single unit of fairly healthy slayers, but a Wa does drop, and that actually kills off a lot of them. A Fate of Buna too hits them up, and this is gonna be pretty scary. Another fanatic bomb too comes down, and it looks like that may be the end for the poor Dowie here. It's just Grombrindle left, and this Night Goblin War Boss is still at full HP. So I think this is going to be another loss for the Dowie, unfortunately. Another fanatic bomb too. There were actually a lot more Night Goblins than I would have expected. But we'll throw down a flash bomb and see if we can rout off all of these forces. And hopefully Grombrindle, with his fairly high melee stats, can kill off the Night Goblin War Boss. But I'm thinking he'll probably just die to the fanatics. So I'll go ahead and call it GG here. We're not getting a mass rout from the greenskins. And that's gonna be that game. In this case, gyrocopters would have actually worked out really well, but such is the fate for the dwarves. Sometimes you run into anti-gyro builds. Sometimes it's more of an anti-artillery, anti-infantry style. I think in general, I could have done much better keeping the bugmans alive, and the Iron Drakes were getting focus fired. So that would have been a harder task, but I think the bugmans for sure could have been protected much better. So there we go. GG. Bracing for the charges is also very important too for the Longbeards and Dwarf Warriors. And yeah, I think that's probably the core of it. So here we go. Into the game against Dark Phoenix. Number 2. It's gonna be, looks like a pretty heavy melee front, a few units of dogs, which is good for me as I do have a ton of cavalry, and probably a ton of archers that are hidden away. So I'll go ahead and spot them with Rakarth and then hit them with Burning Heads. Mogre will be summoning Chaos Spawn, so I'll want to avoid an engagement with him as much as possible. And then, as long as I can take out the archers, I should be good. There we go, a few Beastmen units reveal themselves. No archers yet. There they are in the back line. And will they fire? A few of them do. I'm gonna wait for these guys to fire, and they do, which means that they're gonna be a tiny bit slower for this Burning Head. And there we go, what a Burning Head. We almost annihilate a single unit of archers. And even clip a few units too in the front. So that's a pretty good start. Looks like I even hit a few Goreherd. Oh my goodness. That was a very good Burning Head. And now I can pull back and start kiting with my Corsairs. I have my cavalry so that nothing can actually catch these guys. And then some more burning heads in the future should be able to help out. Rakarth can cycle charge also, and with the combination of all of that, I think I should be good. There's a Brave Shaman of Wild. I'm wondering if I should try sniping him out with fireballs, but for now I think I'll be avoiding that. These Chaos Warhounds too with poison are going to need to be dealt with. And I'll just send my cavalry directly towards them. I have a pretty nice cavalry advantage here, so I think I'll be okay. These these archers too. They are clumping up on Rakarth, and I'm going to try some shenanigans. Rakarth is going to dive in right onto the Bestigor herd, and then once they clump up, I should be able to get a pretty nice AoE on top of them. There we go. Overcast Burning Head, and Rakarth, he's going to be taking a bit of damage himself, but Overcast Burning Head right on top of all these Bestigor gets in pretty good damage, but nothing too crazy actually, and definitely not worth the trade on Rakarth. So a bit of a misplay there, but Rakarth, he will be able to make it out of that alive. And as soon as he takes off, then we're good to go again. So there we go. A little bit of a misplay, but I still traded out decently. In fact, the Bestigor have they've taken a good amount of damage so far, and I should be able to win the game with the Carnivorous actually, as soon as all these archers are out of the equation. I have a ton of cavalry too, so I'm fairly comfortable in this game. I guess I'll still have to be careful not to accidentally throw it. But as soon as the Chaos Warhounds are out, there really shouldn't be any threats for me. So that's going to be the plan. Kill off the range units, and then from there I should be good to go. Cycle charges from my Slaanesha's Harvesters will play a rather large part. I've killed off the Warhounds on different areas of the map, but the Slaanesha's Harvesters have taken quite a bit of damage so far. I do see a fairly nice Spirit Leech opportunity, so I'll throw that down. And then see if I can take out some of this infantry. That should be a fairly easy task. Let's see, as for the back line of the Beastmen, they're getting pretty compromised. So honestly, I think I'm not really worried at all. Some more Burning Heads, specifically to focus fire down the archers, should work out pretty well. It looks like they're pivoting. And you know what? I'm actually going to burn the front line instead, since it seems like I'm already winning the front line fight. So instead of actually killing the archers, by hitting the front line, it gives me more space to hit the archers instead. Although that does seem like a bit of a misplay, as a Chaos Spawn Summon does drop down onto my forces, and I'm going to just have to disengage from that. I don't want to be sticking in that fight, as it is a very disfavored scenario. This Brave Shaman of Wild too is actually a little bit out of position, so I'm going to send in Rakarth to try and snipe him out, and then I'll be chasing off as many Beastmen forces as I can. Rakarth has taken a lot of damage so far, but as soon as I can take out the caster, I'll be feeling a lot more comfortable. Let's go ahead and throw down a few buffs on him. The archers are focus firing him down. He does have really nice attack animations though, and if I can shut down these archers, that would be pretty good. At the moment, they're just being distracted by Rakarth. It means he can't really get good attacks onto the caster, but at the same time, he's wasting ammunition for the Beastmen. The Carnivorous is doing all right. It's taken a bit of damage so far, and let's see, what can I do with it? I really want to rout off these Bestigor herd, so I'm going to send in the Carnivorous into that fight, and hopefully I'll be able to rout them off. The balance of power isn't in my favor either, but that's mostly because of these summons for the Beastmen, and with the Bestigor herd routed, I'm feeling a lot more comfortable now. I've also killed off the Brave Shaman, and the archers are compromised, and once we head into the late game, it's going to be cycle charges for days with all my cavalry. And by all my cavalry, I mean what's remaining of my cavalry, since we did once again miss micro the cavalry. Essentially, the main problem is that, yeah, without enough cavalry, you lose the ability to cycle charge. And that means that this blob over here for the Beastmen is going to be a lot scarier. I'll need some way of actually finishing them off. And the Cardabris alone can't win a straight up fight against them, especially with so much infantry. So the goal is, I'm going to be saving my burning heads for the late game to melt down these Bestigor. And if I can pull that off, then I should be good to go. The archers are nearly down. In fact, they should be terror routed in just a second. And then we should be able to head into the late game. But the Cardabris, its leadership does actually break. That is really bad. And the Bray Shaman is still alive. So I think this game, this battle might have been lost. Although that is not confirmed yet. I can still put in some pretty good pressure onto these archers. I have another burning head at the ready. And I still have my Lord to cycle charge Mogre if I need to. But things are definitely still getting pretty dicey. I'm going to have to disengage and regroup. Chase off whatever archers I can. And oh boy, all right, we're gonna try a big burning head here. There's a lot of infantry that are grouped up, and I might be able to get a pretty good hit here. And that's gonna be my plan to pull out a victory. Hopefully I can kill off most of those guys. The Cardabris too is gonna have to be a bit wary about these archers, but they are fairly exposed. I might be able to kill off a good number of them, but they're now focusing the Cardabris. I'm gonna have to dodge as many shots as I can and send in Rakarth to try and rout these guys instead. Let's see, I don't have my leadership buff for it, which is very unfortunate. But let's just keep running away with it. Rakarth is still doing all right. A few more shots from these archers are gonna rout him off, so I need to pull him into safety. And I have managed to rout off the archers at the very least. Ooh, but it's gonna be a close one, guys. It's gonna be a close one. I need to get some leadership debuffs on the Beastmen. And some burning heads, plus the Cardabris are going to be the solution for that. Rakarth is so low on leadership, I'm going to have to be very careful with him. If he routs off, that is essentially a game loss for me. So let's try this out. Final dive in. The Beastmen infantry have engaged onto my forces. And if I can get them to clump up enough and then send in the Cardabris with a burning head, that is going to be my goal for victory. Rakarth is so low on leadership, I'm going to need to give him a leadership buff. And then here we go. Trying to get terror routs on these Bestigor herds. Rakarth, he can buff up the melee stats of the Cardabris. Sorceress can chase off the Bestigor. And so far we are getting terror routs. That is a plus. Oh man, but oh, it's gonna rout off again, and if it does, it's really bad. Oh my goodness, the Cardabris routs off a second time, and now it's beginning to get chased off. I'm gonna throw down a burning head to try and save it. And Rakarth's leadership is about to waver too. Oh boy, this is gonna be real close. And it looks like it does just barely manage to stick around. But the problem is that there's still a lot of Bestigor. And the leadership is going to be rather difficult to actually shut down. I wish I had these Slaanesh Harvesters, but it looks like that might not be the case heading on into this late game. Still a unit of Bestigor, but the Cardabris does manage to stick around. I will be able to get my cooldowns back. I really need to chase down as many of these archers as I can. And then with these Bestigor, it's still going to be the same plan as earlier, just trying to get them to rout off. The Cardabris, if it does come back, I will be able to dive it in, hopefully get some charge in the back leadership debuffs. It's just that with Rakarth so low on HP, I don't know if I have enough to kill off Mogre at this point. It's actually a rather big problem here. And it looks like the Cardabris might not even come back. Cardabris pronunciation is bugging you. You've never been able to call it its real name? Oh, is it how wrong is the pronunciation here? Be interested to know. Oh, Charybdis. Ah, there you go. Well, there you go. Whoops, my bad. Well, anyways, Mogr, he's doing a lot of damage to the Supreme Sorceress. It looks like this is going to be a loss for me. And I think it mostly came down to my cavalry micro. Not one of my best games played, but you know what? Maybe Rakarth will be able to pull it back here. I'm gonna send him in towards Mogr. If he takes a single hit, he's gonna die. But if he lands every single shot on Mogr and then kills him off, we could see a leadership break for the Beastmen. So that's going to be the goal. Just a Hail Mary play, and we'll see if he's able to do it. He's surrounded by Bestigor now, though, and I think that's going to be game. GG. And as per usual, I think the main mistake here was, for one thing, Rakarth, I suicided my lord, and the second thing is I ran out of cavalry by the end of it. I lost my Slaanesha's harvesters to a ton of archer fire, and that's going to be the main misplay there. The Charybdis too got basically no value. Jeez, look at that. What did it die to? I guess it got caught up by spears. But there you go. I'll just need to get some more practice in with my more elite troops by the looks of it. Wow, I didn't expect it to do that badly. Would you look at that? Perhaps if I went for a more committed monster blob, things could have gone better. So game number 1, now up against Loopy. We're going to see if we can pull out a victory. He has gone for Harpies, as is mandatory up against the Dwarves, which is really nice for this committed box style of Dwarf infantry play. This style works out really well up against Beastmen rushes, so the fact that there is a Cygor is a bit worrying. It will be able to punish my Iron Breakers quite a bit, but with a bit of dodging, I should be able to avoid some damage from the Cygor as I continue to advance towards it. I will end up getting surrounded too during the advance, but this dwarf formation isn't, it's not too worried about getting surrounded. Cygor throwing another rock, I immediately change direction, and with the loose formations, it does actually clip my lord. Gets in a tiny bit of damage, but otherwise still doing okay. I also want to hotkey some of my troops, but mostly they'll be moving together anyways. Once again, I will dodge, Cygor shot, and so far we haven't taken too much damage. Now the Quarrelers are in range to begin causing a bit of hurt, and Goreherd have engaged onto my front line. I'm going to throw a few blasting charges towards them. The Iron Breakers, they do have on guard mode, they can actually take out Goreherd pretty easily, and even though they are engaged by Harpies, it's not too bad of a situation, as the Harpies can't really stop the Iron Breakers from getting their shots off. They are landing onto my Quarrelers too, but actually get caught up by quite a few Slayers. And if I can just take out the Goreherd and bring them below 50% HP, then I will be in a fairly safe threshold to get them routed off. A few Chaos Spawn do get summoned, but my backline is still fairly safe, so I can pull my Quarrelers through there to keep them all alive. I still have a ton of Slayers, which are really good against Chariots, and getting blasting charges on the Goreherd is just going to be the main priority. I need to be winning these fights as quickly as possible, and also continuing to evacuate the Quarrelers, since I do really need them for the late game. The Longbeards will be providing their charge defense against large, and as long as they're able to pull that off, then I think I'm good. The Beastmen forces have already routed off, or at least a good number of them. The Quarrelers are fairly safe. I'll reinforce them with this unit of Longbeards, and now with the last of the blasting charges going off, it's just going to be reforming my lines and trying to get into a safer position. We've successfully dealt with most of the Chariots here, and Mogr, he's going to be getting chased off by my Dwarf Lord. I want to spread out my Iron Breakers so he doesn't do too much damage to me. with spells from this Bray Shaman. And as long as I can pull that off, I should be good. The Chaos Spawn will eventually degrade. And then as long as my Slayers make sure that the Chariots don't constantly cycle charge me, I think I should be good to go. Cygor is still throwing rocks, actually gets a bit of friendly fire there, which is very good for me. And I have secured a unit of Quarrelers, which is really huge for me, as it means that the Gore Herd are going to be taking constant damage. My Lord can provide leadership buffs too, and help in the fight. And we're just waiting for those Chaos Spawn to start disappearing. As soon as they're gone, I will be in a much more comfortable situation. The Chariots can't get anywhere close due to the Slayers in the back. My back line is defended by Longbeards. And on this right flank, I'm going to use my reserve Slayers to charge these infantry in the back. That should give a pretty nasty leadership debuff. And if I get them to rout, that would be pretty good. With some Gore Herd potentially moving in to assist are going to be a bit of a problem. I'm going to send my Longbeards to engage them instead. Now the Chariots are still occupied. They can't really do much, and I have routed off most of the Beastmen forces. The Harpies are going to get chased off by my Slayers, and I think I should be good. A little bit of a miss micro though. My Slayers weren't ready to defend against the Chariots, and I get punished by that with a pretty nasty charge onto my troops, but a potentially good situation. My Slayers do clip this Bray Shaman of Wild and actually get in some pretty decent damage there. And at this point, the Beastmen are looking pretty rough. Thankfully enough, my infantry is just much more elite than theirs. The blasting charges absolutely melted the Gore Herd, and at this point, it's just the single chariot left up against a ton of units that have charged defense against large. So that should work out pretty well. The Quarrelers are about to get compromised, so I'm going to pull them towards the Slayers. My infantry don't have to worry at all about getting charged, since they are Iron Breakers, and the Iron Breakers, of course, have crazy charge defense values. And the Chariots too are actually getting pulled down by my Slayers, surprisingly enough. So yeah, it's looking very good now, as the Beastmen have run out of infantry. And despite there being a Cygor, he really just wasn't able to kill off enough Iron Breakers in the early game. I even managed to keep a unit of Quarrelers alive. And I think we did it, guys. The first win of the day is gonna be upon us. The real Longbeard. Personally, you find yourself relating more to Imperial Cavalry stash. Does the beard reach till your belt? What are you guys talking about? Let's see here. Apparently the chat has evolved into a conversation about dwarven beards. Oh man, it makes me really sad that I miss most of chat while playing these games. But one day I'll be able to play and relate to chat at the same time. Now, anyways, back to the actual game, because it's not over yet. The Beastmen, they do have a few Chariots left and a Cygor. Cygor will die very quickly to the Slayers, and the rest of the infantry will lose to my remaining Longbeards, so I'm not too worried at all. I even have a unit of Quarrelers, so I just have to end the game by killing off this Cygor at this point. Well, Chariots are coming in. I need to get my Slayers in position. With the Dwarves, it is really important that your Slayers are ready to go and in position really early, just because their speed is quite slow. So you need to be predicting where your opponent is going and then position your Slayers accordingly. The Iron Breakers can pretty easily take to the front line and brace for the charge, as they do have charge defense against infantry. Cygor will be facing up against the Slayers, and then with a melee defense buff, the Beastmen shouldn't really be hitting these guys. They have a 91 melee defense, which is basically impossible to hit unless you're a Lord. Nice, the Cygor is now surrounded. A few more hits on Mogre, and that should be army losses. And a victory! Oh my goodness, guys, we did it. We did it. We finally won a game. Oh my goodness. So essentially, this is the main advantage with the dwarves. If you can find with most people, they will bring builds that try to counter different dwarf cheeses, like artillery boxes, ranged play, or gyrocopters. And in this case, Loopy committed committed over 2,000 resources into harpies, which basically didn't pay for themselves. That was the first major win. The Cygor was a pretty scary threat, but with dodges we avoided most of the damage, and then the Iron Breakers really carried the day. Up against Bestigors and Goreherd, if you can bring them below half HP, they lose their frenzy and they die really quickly to Longbeards. As you can see here with our infantry, they did really well on that front. The GG. Indeed, he was expecting gyros. So here we go. We are in the game. And we are up against Loopy. Game number 2. I am up 1 in score after winning the dwarf game. And what we have to deal with right now is a Hell Cannon firing in onto my Dark Riders. This build is taken from Ice Power using his suggestions in chat, and we'll see if I can actually take out the if I can take out this Hell Cannon. It's doing a lot of damage to my Dark Riders, but I should have the air game solid at the very least. And then if I can just take care of the skirmishers, then I can push forwards and hopefully kill the thing. But this build seems like a pretty nice anti-skirmish style. Morathi takes a fireball, clips her side. A good amount of damage, but she's still doing okay. In fact, I think the fireball was aimed at the chariots instead. And I'm going to advance forwards and then land Morathi into the Hell Cannon and see if I can take it out. I have a ton of AoE that I can throw down. And we're just gonna try this out. This is very ham, but a Soul Stealer dropped in here to do pretty good. The chariots are in the mix. I'm not microing perfectly, and I really want my Dark Rider crossbows to get in to assist. The Doom Bolt onto the troops too should be able to help a lot. Slaanesh Harvesters can drop another Soul Stealer into the mix, and I might be able to just win this engagement outright. We'll see. I need another Soul Stealer very soon though, and it might have been a bit too ham. But Morathi should be able to escape. I have a ton of Dark Rider crossbows in the mix now, and I'm going to have another Soul Stealer in about 20 seconds. So that should be able to help quite a bit. Chariots are doing fairly good. And the Chaos Archaon, the Ever-Chosen, is having a pretty rough time. So far it looks like the Soul Stealers have helped win that fight fairly well. Morathi should have another one in just a second, but she's about to get routed off. And that is pretty bad. That is pretty bad. Morathi is out, but not dead. I'm going to try and give her an escape using the chariots. And as soon as she's back, I'm going to send... I'm going to throw in another Soul Stealer and hopefully win that fight. She may get escorted off by these Marauder Horsemen, so it's very important that I keep her safe. And looks like the Marauder Horsemen do peel off. They are going to be trying to catch out Morathi. But there we go, she does come back, thank goodness. And the Soul Stealer dropping immediately onto this blob should be able to get a lot of damage here. My cavalry is firing on in. Should be able to kill off the the rest of the Hell Cannon crew too. But we've sort of traded out a lot. I do still have my Soul Stealers. It is mostly infantry for Chaos too. So now that that huge engagement is done, I guess the plan is to kill off Archaon and the Manticore. We'll see if I can do it. I do have another Soul Stealer that I can throw down, and if I can kill Archaon, that would be rather huge. Let's see here. I'll throw the Wand of Coridon on top of him, and then yeah, just hit him with the Manticore. Hopefully he will die. Morathi could probably charge him in the back too, but with the Burning Head, it looks like fight is not as one-sided as I would have hoped. Still though, the army is mostly infantry, and I do have a lot of soul stealers left. I do have a few chariots, so I think this late game army is fairly well suited to win the game now. Manticore will be going down to Marathi. Thank goodness. If it did kill her, that would be really bad. And the Hell Cannon is shut down, and it's just infantry left for Chaos. So there's not really much that they can do left, despite my pretty crazy Hail Mary play, just diving Marathi right into the blob directly. It looks like it just worked. Who would have guessed? Archaon is now running off the battlefield. I still have a ton of chariots, and it looks like Ice Powers single entity build madness is gonna be winning the game. I'll just send her directly into the fight because there's so much infantry here. With another Soul Stealer, that's going to be killing off the rest of them. I can charge them in the back. Marathi will be getting pretty close to heal capped, and I hit all the infantry right before they managed to escape. Absolutely brutal. The Manticore can charge into their backs too, and then the chariots can rout them off, but the halberds almost kill off Marathi. Almost a huge misplay on my part, but then a mass terror rout, and that's going to be game. Absolutely unnecessary risks that I did not need to take, but it looks like the build is strong enough where it just sort of does it. Now, like I said, absolutely unnecessary risks. Marathi could have died there, and if she did, it would have been a game loss. I could have waited much longer, but you know, yeah, she just barely pulled through. Oh my goodness. Yes, losing the Manticores too was pretty scary. If I lost Terror, that would have been really bad. No single entities to kill. That was terrible play from my part. It was the build that really carried me for sure. Oh my goodness. So here we go, game number 1. Up against Hadries. He has a Hammer of Gork, some archers, an Arachnarok Spider, Goblin Great Shaman, River Troll Hag, just a couple skirmishers, so I'm feeling pretty confident here. He might Spirit Leech my Manticores, so I'll keep them safe and quite far back. And the chariots are going to be killing off these skirmishers. All my Dark Riders, stay away from the archers. They don't want to be taking those fights for sure. And then let's just move up and start killing off these goblin skirmishers. I have a ton of cavalry at the ready. I'm going to take to the flanks and let Marathi take a ton of archer fire. Big misplay on my part. That is a lot of damage that we didn't want to be taking, since we do want to be heal capping her eventually. The River Troll Hag does dodge quite a few shots too, but so far the focus fire is going on Marathi, which is a small blessing, since it does mean that my Manticores won't be rampaging nearly as easily. Now, eventually I want to be cycle charging the infantry, and I think I'll begin getting into position to do that. I need to make sure that I'm dodging as much as possible, and my chariots can now hit up the infantry. That's very good. And Marathi, she might even be able to duel this River Troll Hag. There are a few big guns that I'll need to hit with the chariots. I also want to be pulling out as quickly as possible. The River Troll Hag is now caught, and then it's just going to be a quick disengage immediately after that. I don't want to be staying in that fight longer than I have to. Marathi, she does get mithered actually, and I'm going to need to pull in a little bit of support. Some Nesh's Harvesters will be pretty good in this situation. And then just some Soul Stealers. Marathi too, throwing down a Soul Stealer. Will she be able to escape though? It looks like probably not. A misplay from me. She takes off, and will she get killed off? Oh my gosh, she gets murdered. Oh my goodness, huge misplay. Getting the Mither combo onto Marathi, getting her routed off. But potentially I could get a few picks here too. I don't think it's fully over yet, although that was a pretty rough loss. I will be able to rout off the River Troll Hag, the Manticores, doing the job very well on that front. As for these Goblin Skirmishers, I have my Dark Riders engaging on top of them. And we're going to see if I can actually kill off this Goblin Great Shaman. I'll focus fire him with the chariots. And with their anti-large, he might go down rather quickly. But so far, it's looking like that misplay is gonna cost me there. Marathi should have used her Soul Stealer a tiny bit earlier, and I definitely shouldn't have gone so ham with her. But let's take stock of the situation. The chariots are still operational. I can continue to pick off infantry here. There are a lot of greenskin skirmishers for sure. But the River Troll Hag is routing. I am going to lose another Manticore though, and that's going to be a much bigger loss. I need to be focusing on cycle charging as much as possible to rout off the infantry. And then from there, trying to kill off the greenskin lords, I think. I'm gonna turn off Fire at Will on the chariots. And then save that ammunition to kill off this great shaman. But it's gonna be a rough one for sure. The rock lava is still operational too, which means that I am indeed on a timer. And man, if Marathi had lived there, it would have been so much better, but gotta manage the misplays for now. Now, we routed off a good number of troops. The Manticore does dodge the Vindictive Glare, thankfully enough. River Troll Hag is a little bit exposed. But I am losing some chariots to the Orc Big Guns. Oh, actually losing a lot of chariots to the Orc Big Guns. And you know what? I think I'm going to call that one GG. Nice snipe on Hadries. Coming in very quickly, stopping the Soul Stealer, and then making sure that Marathi didn't heal. Very solid snipe. And win from there. I think if I had been able to keep her alive, I could have actually done fairly well. And I want to make sure I have support to actually peel for her whenever that happens. So it happens when you're unfamiliar with the build. But I think there was potential to pull out a victory there. Ice Power, you say you like taking Marathi against the Dwarves? I could see Soul Stealers working well against boxes and stuff for sure. It's like how Final Transmutation works decently well against them too. Okay, and Hadries has gone for a Bolt Thrower style of build. My Grudge Thrower can't kill off the bolts fast enough, so I'm going to have it target down infantry instead, and it'll just be buying time for my front line to advance. There are a few Dark Riders in the back. I'll have to be a little bit wary about them. And they could shut down the Grudge Thrower, but I do have Rangers here to support if needed, so that should be fine. They're focusing my Iron Drakes too, so I'll spread them out. That should avoid most of the damage on that front, and then we'll just try and get this engagement going, keeping a close eye on those Dark Riders. We don't want them to hit my troops up too hard. Now these the crossbowmen for the Dark Elves is going to be a little bit of an issue. I'll try and avoid them for as long as I can. Getting in some Dwarf Warriors to flank. And here we go, the Dark Riders have been enabled. They're diving in towards my Grudge Thrower, but they're going to be eating Quarreler Fire and actually getting, yeah, we're getting some pretty nice damage there. That's pretty good. I have a ton of infantry, so I should be able to effectively outflank Hadries here. There is a Loke here, strangely enough, and he is going to be able to kill off my Rune Lord, so I'll be avoiding a fight against him mostly. Now these crossbows are defending the Bleak Swords. I have killed off the cavalry. They're routing off, so I can reman my artillery. Go ahead and do that. Fire at Will is on. And then now I'm going to try to advance and deal with these Dark Shards. It looks like, you know what, that's actually a pretty bad idea. My infantry don't have a ton of support over there, so I'm going to be avoiding that fight actually. There are a few executioners, and I want my Iron Drakes to be killing those guys specifically. This flank, I'm going to deny it, as I really don't want to be engaging in that situation. And then the Grudge Thrower is going to kill off the Executioners. There we go. These Executioners are getting roasted pretty quickly, and I want my guns to move forwards as quickly as they can, so that they can actually start supporting the infantry fight. The Executioners are getting pretty low now. I can slow them down with my Rune Lord, and a gap has formed in the Dark Elf lines. a dwarf warrior unit can now move forwards and either shut down the bolt throwers or the dark shards. A single dwarf warrior isn't going to be enough to kill off the dark shards, so I'm going to send them in towards the bolt throwers instead. Executioners are melting, and I'm a bit worried about my dwarf warriors. I feel like they might not be able to really get in and assist or get in onto these bolt throwers fast enough. So we'll see if they're able to dive in there. It's a bit too late to disengage with them, but at the very least now it looks like I should be able to start killing off a few of these dark shards. My forces have moved on in now, and I have a pretty nice concave of fire on top of them. The executioners I'll be running away from, since that's a very bad engagement that I don't want to be fighting. And in the meantime, I've killed off this unit of executioners, but Hadri's has killed off my iron drakes, at least a few of the iron drakes. So we'll see how this engagement goes. I have a few dwarf warriors that will be able to chase off the crossbowmen, which is good. It'll buy more time for my archers to actually fire away. But things are a little bit dicey here. Lokir Fellheart too is going to be a bit of a pain up against all of my guns. But I finally shut down one of the bolt throwers. My Rocklobber has done an amazing job at punishing these executioners too. But the Dark Elf passive ability is now triggered. And that means that my infantry is going to be in for a pretty rough time now. Hopefully I can keep most of the Dark Elves occupied though. And also, a potential opportunity, Lokir Fellheart is actually a bit out of position, and I'm going to try and snipe him out with my Rune Lord. I have slows that I can drop on him in just a second, and I have a unit of Thunderers who should be able to take him out as well. A slow now coming on in. He's going to be very slowed now, and then now the moment of truth. Can I get some Thunderers to get a volley to kill him? In the meantime, I've also killed off all the executioners with my ranged superiority. And Lokir Fellheart, he's slowed for only 10 more seconds. So as soon as that begins to run out, I'm going to turn my guns to fire in on top of him and hopefully get a vicious volley to actually kill him off. No guarantee, but the guns have turned, and that's a pretty good volley. It takes out about a quarter of his HP, but Lokir is still nowhere near routing. Which is, it's not great, but in the long run, if I can get him to rout off, then that would work out pretty well. The bolt throwers too are still getting occupied. This unit of dwarf warriors are absolute heroes. And soon, well actually the bolt throwers did use up all their ammunition, so maybe not as great as I would have hoped. But I think I've almost pulled through. I've done a fairly nice job dealing with the executioners. Lokir is on the verge of routing. And as the ammunition now runs out for the Dark Elves, it's going to be a game of essentially just these Dark Shards left, who honestly aren't too scary. I can chase them off with Dwarf Warriors, and with Lokir now actually routing off the battlefield, it looks like that's going to be it. The mass range Dwarf build looking to work out fairly well. If I had gone for Gyrocopters, it would have been interesting, since this army did have no Harpies, but the bolt throwers would have been pretty scary in that situation. Essentially, the idea though is that the Goblobber was just a hard carry there. This bad boy at 1400 value killed off a full unit of executioners on its own, and that was really huge. The other unit got killed off by the Iron Drakes, and I played well enough to make sure that the Dark Shards didn't get too much damage off. But here we go. The match, it begins. Up against Hadri's. I got, what's it? It's a Wood Elf versus Wood Elf mirror. Hadri's going for a standard, more normal Wood Elf build to my kiting style. So I'm gonna have to kite him out. Let's see here. I'm going to progress this way and then retreat towards the corner. And I need to start killing off some Dryads. My lord is gonna want to focus down the these Glade Guard, and then I'm just gonna start retreating. before he causes too many issues with these Glade Guard. I definitely don't want the Glade Guard to get in too much damage onto me. I can hit them with my Deepwood Scouts though, and the more I can take out, the merrier. There we go, a pretty vicious volley to start off with, but the Dryads are continuing to progress towards me, and I need to use my cavalry to slow him down as much as possible. Hopefully I can kill off most of these Glade Guard, and I gotta remember, split up your cavalry. They do not clump up like dog units. And there we go. I've killed off one unit of Glade Guard. That's very good. My cavalry needs to be pulling around to safer positions. I am losing a single unit of Deepwood Scouts too, which means that I'm trading slightly ineffectively here, but at least my cavalry is doing fairly good. There are some units of cavalry in the back too that I have to be a bit wary of, and some Glade Riders who are trying to engage onto my Wild Riders. Now the Wild Riders are advantaged because of their higher stats, but you can see Hadri's is quickly pulling in his Glade Guard to move in and support. As for my Lord, she needs to be finding something to net. I'm not sure which target I want to do that yet. Since honestly, I'm not getting too overwhelmed just yet. I can continue to wait, and I have my spears engaging on cavalry too. So yeah, there's no real need for a net yet, and I can just continue to retreat. I'll throw down another heal. I did lose a unit of Deepwood Scouts, which is pretty unfortunate. But so far the kite has gone decently. Pendulum hits my Deepwood Scouts, gets in some pretty decent damage, but now I'm in a pretty interesting situation. Essentially, I have a cavalry advantage in the back line of Hadri's, and even if he decides to try and charge in to into my back line, I have cavalry to support, and with a net onto these guys over here, I think I should be able to compromise his backline fairly well. As for these Dryads, they'll be having a pretty rough time, and it looks like I do manage to actually rout off a few of the Glade Guard, which is a really nice pick for me. My troops have continued to disengage fairly well, and I have almost free reign on the Dryads. The Glade Guard will... let's see here. I trade one unit of Wild Riders for 2 Glade Guard, which in an archer fight I think is worth it, although still pretty painful. What is really nice though actually is Drycha is now a little bit out of position, and I'm going to try and snipe her out now. I'll be bringing in my Lord to try and accomplish that, and with the combination of my cavalry I think that should work out okay. The Deepwood Scouts will be screening for me. Same with my spears. And Drycha should be having a pretty rough time in just a second. I can send in my Lord, hopefully pick her off. The healing for Hadri's is non-existent since he did go for Drycha, so hopefully that works out okay. A solid charge into her, but these archers are online and operational, and it looks like she might even want to be throwing down a summon too, so I'm going to take off with my Lord and just start shooting her to death instead. I'm going to sacrifice a few of my spears to face up against the to slow down these Dryads a tiny bit, and then it's just a matter of whether or not I can kill off Drycha here. My Deepwood Scouts will continue picking off targets. I still have a healthy amount of cavalry, surprisingly enough, so I'm feeling okay here. Deepwood Scouts is continuing to kite back. I'm maneuvering along the edge of the map so that they I'm maneuvering along the edge of the map so that I don't run out of space to actually kite, and it looks like ammunition is still pretty healthy for me. There are 3 Deepwood Scouts for Hadri's though that I will have to contend with, and there's going to be a little bit of a mission. A few Glade Guard are still alive too, so I'm going to have to be pretty careful here. Deepwood Scouts can continue firing though, and skirmishing against Hadri's so that I'm following the attacking rule, and then a continued snipe on Drycha is gonna be the plan. Let's also group up some of my troops for healing, and then see how that goes. Let's see, Drycha is taking a good amount of damage. Healing is down. Go ahead and group up the cavalry, And then continue running away with the Deepwood Scouts. My lord, looks like the scouts are firing in on her now. I want to back away with her. And with my cavalry so healthy, they will likely be able to overrun this army in the late game. That's just going to be the plan. Yeah, overrunning the Deepwood Scouts with cavalry. It should go fairly well. And as for the Dryads, they are going to be taking some pretty big charges from my cavalry. So that should be pretty good. The Deepwood Scouts are still quite scary though. Drycha too. And I'm going to actually dive in with my spears onto these guys now and begin pressuring them. Drycha 2 taking so much damage will be a rather big help for me. And I have my archers into support too. So even though I will be taking a bit of fire using going into this engagement, it's still not the worst case scenario. And with my Eternal Guard now moving into engage, it looks like I should be able to start overwhelming the Wood Elf infantry in the back. My caster, absolutely out of position. I'm not sure how she got there, but this is a fairly good situation for me because she can actually distract these forces for a good amount of time. In the meantime, my lord can snipe out Drycha. My caster will be getting surrounded though, which is not great. That's actually rather bad, but let's see if she can pull it back. An Awakening of the Wood is really nice on top of all this cavalry. I have my Deepwood Scouts firing in, and these Deepwood Scouts are still occupied by my spears. And with the caster holding out, looks like she might be able to do fairly well, but a big pendulum on my cavalry is absolutely brutal. My cavalry takes a whole ton of damage. But given the current lead that it seems like I have, I'm actually going to move in the cavalry now and catch out the Deepwood Scouts. I can try netting them down, but they're a bit out of range. Nevertheless, I should be able to catch 2 of them. The other is nearly out of ammunition. And with that catch, I think the game should be over. Drycha now nearly dead. And there we go. A pretty scary game. But in the end, it seems like I was just able to kite and get a lot more damage out of my Deepwood Scouts. The Deepwood Scouts of Hadries are now shut down. Drycha is dead. And that's gonna be GG. Oh boy, what a match. What a match. Army losses. It's over, guys. Wood Elves and no forest. Oh boy. Oh man, this is a matchup that I feel a lot more comfortable in, as opposed to the Dwarves and the Dark Elves, as we saw later today, or earlier today. And yeah, oh man, my main advantage here was the cavalry. They did absolutely amazingly, and the Deepwood Scouts all paid for themselves. For Hadries, I think he could have been more aggressive with his scouts. But maybe he was worried about my cavalry just diving in. With such a big advantage on the cavalry, it would have been risky to leave his archers open. But because he was the aggressor, I actually had free range to kite away as much as I wanted. And that gave me some really nice volleys. Also, sniping out Drycha with my Glade Lord was really good. Alright, nice. And now,